My name is Alison Hind. I am a fellow from IIRSM and I am the chair of IIRSM Europe, which is quite a new branch. We've been going, oh, I don't know, do you know how long, Sue? Maybe let's say 3 months or something since we've had our introductory webinar. But if anyone is from Europe and would like to talk to me about that, I would love to hear from you. My day job is I am CEO of a software company called Proactively. So having spent my whole career as a health, safety, environment, sometimes quality manager within many companies in UK and throughout Europe, I'd really got to understand the problems that I was facing and those people around me. So when I moved across to Switzerland, I was really lucky to meet a good gang of people, and we were able to take a new, fresh look at how it was possible to manage risk. And the result of that is our Proactively system. But this webinar today is not about Proactively, it's about digitalization and then about what you can do with a digital solution. So if we go back through time, this is where we all started off with paper forms. And you're probably familiar with how unpopular these are with all the people that are filling them in. So not just you as the risk manager, but everyone within your organization. They don't know what to write in the form. When it sends to you, it often gets lost. It takes too long to get to you, so you get the information too late, and then it's kind of incomplete and hard to read. So many problems with paper forms. As we move on, there are two different things. Now, I'm a bit of a guilty of interchanging these, but they're actually two different things: digitization and digitalization. So digitization first. This is, and it's again a step we've all been through, where the paper form comes in, you look at this pile of paperwork and think, what on earth can I do to make sense of it? And you get an Excel spreadsheet and you type it in, or someone else types. Everyone's typing into these spreadsheets, and then you can start to draw some graphs and things, but it comes with the problems of you've double handled that data, it's taken a lot of time, and it brings errors into the system. So some good things and bad things with that step. As we move further on, digitalization is when we're making better use of mobile technology. So now we're using the technology to collect the data, whether that's through mobile phones or using sensors on smoke detectors and machinery and things, different ways of getting information into the system, then using it to find trends and make better decisions. So it's all about how you use that data and using it in the best way possible. And that's digitalization. Brings many advantages. It's pretty easy to use, sort of user-friendly. If you thinking of your mobile phone, there's things that it can do automatically. It can record the date, the time, the location, take photos. And so all those things can come in as standard. You don't have to duplicate that information. So it's quicker to use it. And of course, taking a photo is much more informative than writing a great essay about what you've seen. So easy to use and more engaging. Accessible. So again, we've been through I have to go and find the paper form, I have to print it out, I have to write on it, all this sort of stuff. Versus now, mobile phone most people are carrying them around with them. And not only is it in your pocket, but it's possible to use a mobile device even when you don't have internet coverage. So you can use it when you're, I don't know, back or beyond. I'm located in Switzerland, and I have people out in the mountains. Particularly, there's a ski club here that's using my my system, and they make reports from the mountains where we don't have internet coverage. Accurate real-time data. I think this is huge. That how many times with paper that you find out about things in real time, and then you can take the necessary steps effectively. So we're all aware that, for example, if there's an incident, how critical it is to start doing the remedial actions as quickly as possible, so that it can make the whole situation a lot less severe than if you have delays there. So real-time information is really important. You can also start setting up automated workflows, so the information goes to the right people. And this is saving you time, getting away from manually directing, really making sure that the right people have the right information. All this gives you better control and workforce engagement, which are the absolute key things that we're looking for. So what did we say it did? The first part of a digital system is how we're going to get the information into the system. So I've talked a bit about mobile phones, which is my area of expertise, but you're probably also using Internet of Things. This is when we put a sensor on an inert object. So for example, I've got my smartwatch here, and maybe you have on your smoke detectors or on machinery, and it can measure different parameters. So my watch measures my temperature, my steps, my heart rate, all sorts of things. If it's an environmental monitor, again, we can do noise, vibration, huge range of things. That information then is generated and comes through a communication network, usually the internet, and is able to be shared with lots of different people. Benefits, incident prevention. So now we can start being a bit more proactive. We can, for example, let's talk about the machine that has got a sensor on it. If part of the operation of the machine goes outside the safe zone, you can get an immediate flag up warning, and you can take action before there's an incident. So we can start to be much more proactive in our approach. This is also the case with if you're using a mobile phone for near miss reporting, and it's about finding out things before there's a problem. Quicker emergency response, like we said before, if you get that immediate alert as soon as it's out of specification or an incident happens, then you can take action. I'm thinking here things like, for example, a lone working device where, as soon as someone stops moving or they get a certain distance away from the beacon, it will alarm. And then if they're working on their own, you are still able to find out if they've had some sort of accident and take action for that. So quicker and good emergency response. And then enhanced productivity. So all the data that you're collecting helps you understand how your workers, how your processes are happening, and learn from that and improve productivity. So we collect the data in, and then where is it kept? Again, going back, filing cabinet. I have a filing cabinet in my office. It's full of mostly accounting information because you have to keep an original of those. But I sort of ruffle around in it, and I guess we've all got filing cabinets, and we know that that it's great for original data, but has limitations in capacity and finding things again. Hard drive. So this is your computer that you're using. Advantages are you don't have to be connected to the internet. Disadvantage, it's very difficult to share that data. You end up emailing it to different people, and then it's in the wrong place. Everyone's storing it somewhere else, and you've got multiple copies. I think as well, particularly hard drive, they can get damaged, they can stop working. You can even have it stolen or lose it. And in those cases, you've pretty much, unless you've got a really good backup system, you have lost that data, and sometimes other people can access that data if it's been stolen. So definitely security issues with hard drives. Next one down, the company server. So this is when you have an IT department probably, and the servers are on site, and they manage what's happening. Really great for security, provided that they are running a really good backup system. I would say that, you know, I've done for ISO 27000 audits, and I've seen companies that think it's backing up, and then they go to test it and find that it's sometimes not. So do make sure, if you're running company servers, that you have a fantastic backup system there. And of course, really good for sharing information. Downside is you need an IT department to be managing this, and that has cost and resource implications. And also you need to build redundancy into the system. So you're paying for more than what you're using. So it tends to be quite an expensive system. Which brings us to the last one on here, which is my feeling really whether the future is going or is already now, and that's a cloud system. So cloud system is when you're using it's a software as a service. So rather than buying hardware, you're buying to rent part of someone else's server. And it can be multiple servers. They are technically expert in what they're doing. So you obviously choose a cloud provider that has an exceptionally good security record. And then you can trust that they're handling the data well. Fantastic things about it: sharing that information, mobility, so wherever you are in the world, so long as you have an internet connection, you can use it on your phone, on your laptop, on your whatever, on your watch, to see that information. You don't need to have installation on site, which makes it much flexible and much quicker to use, and I've talked about security. So the huge benefit is cost savings, and that's really what's driving people down this route. Disadvantage here is that it needs to have an internet connection. It will not work without. This is an interesting, if I think about how my system and probably most other softwares offering a similar sort of system work, is that I have a mobile app which can work offline, so it can work without an internet connection, and you use that for collecting the data. So I don't know if your workers are out walking around a reservoir inspecting things, they can make that report on the mobile device even without a connection. Then as soon as they come back into mobile coverage, the information comes across and it goes into the cloud, and this is where it's managed. So you as a manager will only see it when you have internet connection, because that information only comes in with that internet connection. So the web portal is a cloud service and is what uses the internet. But that combination of you can report from anywhere offline and you need the internet to manage it is really powerful as a combination. Oh, this is from Dublin Airport, and every time I go through it makes me smile. They have lots of clouds up on the wall, and each has a sort of funny saying in, because it's Ireland. So which of these clouds has all my data in it? Yeah. Okay, so the information has been come into the system, we're storing it and managing it, and now we need to do some analysis. There's a range of different options that are more or less complicated. So most safety software, the information will come in and it will be analysed in a dashboard, and this can be a self-serve dashboard, so you can get exactly the information you need. You know, it might be that you only want a specific department, or you want a more strategic or a more a different type of dashboard to the standard one. You have the option to customize this and get really the information you need to see the trends that you need. So that's a great way down at the software side, and everyone understands how it works, so it's pretty user friendly. You then go up the scale in technical difficulty and to where perhaps the future is going, and then you're into artificial intelligence, machine learning. So we're using machines and computers to simulate human intelligence. How this works is they gather a huge, enormous data set, and then they draw patterns from that and learn from it and relate it to an algorithm. and then they use this algorithm to predict what's going to happen. So it's a kind of continuous learning. Every more data that comes in, they're going to test, they're going to refine and get better and better at predictions. Example of this, some time ago, I went to a Lloyd's Register accelerator program where they were focusing on AI. And the sort of things they were doing, a good example of this is if you go into a supermarket, they put a camera on the shelf and it takes pictures of everyone's face. So enormous numbers of data. I mean, we're not talking small, but huge numbers of data. And it can look at your facial expression and it can use that to predict what you're going to buy off the shelf. So that's the kind of thing. And then the extension of that from a safety perspective was Lloyd's Register does a lot of maritime work, and they were using a similar system to look at the helmsman on the boat and look at his facial expressions and say if he was tired and therefore he shouldn't be navigating the boat. So that's the kind of thing that you're seeing. So some really exciting opportunities, but sort of like where software is everything going on in your company. This is probably looking at a very specific task that you need to improve. So that's a look at how digitalization works and what we're doing now, what we're doing in the future. Now let's see how it can apply to you. So as a risk, health and safety environment manager, what do you do every day? What do you have problems with, and how can a digital solution help with that? So I'm basing my problems on, as I said, my background. I was health, safety, environment manager for a very, very, very long time in multiple companies. I've also been an ISO certification auditor. So I've seen hundreds of different companies and looked at sort of thousands of different ways that people do things to see what people are doing well and what they're struggling with. And that's the basis of this presentation. So as a risk manager, our number one job is to prevent incidents and problems that we have with doing this. I have problem number one, lack of reporting. If you don't get the information, then you don't find about accidents, you don't find out about near misses, you're unable to take the actions that need to be done. So here we're with a digital solution. So why do people not report? I mean, yes, blame culture, and I think it's massively important that you're sending out a really strong message that it's important that people report incidents and that you are wanting to learn and stop them happening again. You know, obviously that's a really important message. But I also feel that people don't report because it can take too long and they don't know what's going to happen with the information. So if you can use, for example, a mobile app, make it an easy solution it's easy for people to report. They can use what we talked about before, taking photos, the automatic time date stamping to make it much easier to report these things more quickly. And you can also be part of a loop so that people can get feedback so that they know that you've actually received that information and that you're going to do something with it. And that again is massively important for trying to encourage people to do more reporting. So here's an example of an incident, and then there's just a very simple accident report associated with it. Fill in the report, press send, and it's done. Problem number two, knowing the cause. So if you have an ISO system, you know there is a requirement to, if you have an incident, you have to, if you only address the immediate causes of that incident, then you can only stop that happening again. But the ISO system is very clear that you need to go back and find out the root cause, and then you can stop many more similar things happening. So you go and you audit a company that has an ISO system, and all the forms say what happened and then what's the cause, what's the root cause. I mean, I can honestly, having seen thousands of these reports, say that I can probably count on one hand the number of people who actually write something good in that box. You know, even I guess that the biggest issue is that you know, hopefully for most people, most companies, you're not having lots of incidents. So you can go on an incident investigation course, but when you actually come down to do it, unless you're a specialist in doing investigations, you probably haven't done one for some time, and so you've forgotten how it works. So if you can have forms that actually lead you through that process. So I'm talking not let's write a procedure and it's 20 pages long and give it to people and then they don't know where to start. I'm talking about with a digital system, you can have the right information in the right place. So on your, for example, mobile app, you can have a little I button and it will give you examples of what could be filled in that box. So it can draw people through the process in a kind of user-friendly and self-directed way. And then they're much more likely to be able to do something like a 5 whys type investigation and get all the way through from the injury, go back through the incident, immediate cause, underlying cause, get to that root cause, and give you much better information to make your management decisions based upon. Problem number 3, you get a lot of data, but it's hard to understand. Where are the priorities? And particularly, what do we need to do about it? So we want data-driven decisions is where we want to go. Now, of course, the information coming into the system, a software solution is likely to have a dashboard, and this is going to show trends. And the information comes in, if you're using mobile apps, using real-time reporting, so it's up-to-date information. Let's have a quick look at what we can do with that. So this is just a very simple sample dashboard, but you can see that where we should be targeting our efforts, the workshop has got the most incidents, cuts and bruises of hands. So maybe we're looking at knives and hand tools. Housekeeping is a big thing. So how are the knives being stored? Are they being left on the desk, or are they being put away safely? So these are the kind of things that this dashboard prompts me to think about. And, you know, of course, it's easier with that information to go and communicate that, why it's important to people. I think this is probably the most sad. Problem number 4, the same accidents happen again. So what we need to do is learn the lessons. We need to be able to share information. And I mean, we saw a simple dashboard there, that can come onto multiple people's computers. You can have a big screen in reception that can show some core information, and it's kept up to date because it's connected to your system. Make it relevant. Now, as you walk past, I don't know what's on the notice boards in your company, but quite often they're quite dry, not very engaging, and they have standard posters that are produced by HSE, by, I don't know if WIRSM produces posters, certainly IOSH do, sort of one size fits all poster. But think about, if you've got your digital system, you're getting a lot of information coming in so that can tell stories, really relevant stories to how your company is working, and it's with photos on it as well. So you can produce your lessons learned, your stories, and put more interesting and more relevant things on your notice board, and that really makes it much more accessible and useful to people. So many people on this call will have gone one step further than reporting incidents, and they will be now looking at observations. So observations is sort of one stage forward. We're looking, it's usually split into 2 parts. We have hazards. So have you seen a risk and you want to report it and make it safe? And this is what we can see on the left side. So lots of people walking in a high-risk area because they're doing cleaning. So, you know, you'd probably think that the cleaning's happening at the wrong time of day. You can change something about that. On the right, you can see a good practice report. Now, if you're looking for employee engagement, really learning from the good things is probably more important than picking up the bad things. You can really learn, share good things that are going on in your company and reward people for it and be much more encouraging and positive. And health, safety, environment really needs that as an approach. So those are the sort of observations that people can make with a mobile app. What we're trying to do is make it super quick. So you report and fix it and get back to work. So number 1 was incidents. And number 2, what we spend a lot of time doing, and other people in our organizations, inspections and audits. I've split it into 2 parts. So we've got the ones at the top here are workers carrying out really pre-work checks. So, before I start work, I look at my harness and I see if it's in good condition. And what you're looking for here is I can do it quickly and get back to work, making it part of the task, rather than seeing it as a bolt-on extra, go and get a piece of paper, do a more longer process. And then down the bottom, we have the routine inspection. So, every morning I do a workplace inspection. Every month I do a management system audit. And these are the ones that get programmed in, and you have auditors carrying out. So all those audits and inspections, number 1 problem, I think, is lack of time. If you think your audit system, how many times audits get delayed, how many times they don't happen. As an ISO auditor, the number of people who are doing, or companies doing audits before I go in, because you need to as part of your standard, rather than seeing it as a positive way to improve their system. So lack of time, big issue. Also, those worker ones, taking the time to carry out that inspection of the harness or whatever. What we want is something that can make it quicker and easier. And again, that's a mobile app with things like photos. Here's an example. You can see a harness inspection. So you can imagine phone, takes it out of his pocket, goes through, are these okay? In this particular example, the stitching isn't good. We've got a photo, we've put the serial number in. So now he's can get on with his job and do the work, not using that harness, I hope. And you get the information coming in about which harnesses have failed, what sort of things were people doing with them before, how old are they, what type, what manufacturer, all this sort of information you get that you can use to make better decisions about how you manage harnesses, and of course different other equipment as well. Problem number 2, fixed change. So all companies are different, and how you work will change. What you really don't want is a static system, and a one size fits all. You want to be able to make changes yourself. I think when you make the changes, you also, again, a huge ISO thing is document control. So everyone has the latest form, and all the other ones are disposed of. And I've spent a lot of time chasing up old documents. With a digital system, once you publish it, always the latest form is there available for use. And here we've got an example of, this is a like drag and drop form builder. So you can choose the questions that you want. You drag the different types of questions. You write your question and then you publish it, and it goes straight into the mobile app where everyone can use it. So always the latest version. And in this kind of system, you're able to choose the questions you want. So often you start with standard questions, so you're not having to reinvent the wheel, but you will then make it specific for your site. Or what else do we spend a lot of time and money on? Training. So huge amounts of training going on for health, safety, environment, ranging from your formal, I go and sit in a classroom and I get a certificate for it, sort of NEBOSH certificates, all that sort of things WRSM do as well, through to on the job training, toolbox talks, so these are in the workplace, and then electronic training. I mean, you're on a webinar now, but YouTube, fantastic for finding out, on demand, huge amount of resources that are there. Different pros and cons, different levels of interaction, ability to ask questions, learning experience, but it's really nice to have a sort of blended training with all those taking place. So I'm not interested for this presentation about how the training is delivered, but let's look at what you as the health and safety environment manager want. First, did the training work? You're spending a heck of a lot of money and time doing it. did it make any difference? So first of all, from a digital solution, you can start collecting better feedback, so asking people what they thought of it. Now, I, like you, I've given a lot of training. I used to hand people a paper form at the end of the training course. They'd fill it in and hand it back to me. I'd read it and really hope that they'd written some nice things about me. But you know, it's probably not the most effective way of getting an objective decision about how useful was that training when you're handing it into the trainer. So if you can have an anonymous system, it's going to be much better. And digital systems, you can use QR codes to anonymously get the form that you need and write whatever you felt about the training. So you can get a score, but also answering good questions like, what will you do differently as a result of this training? So you can get a bit more information as well. Important as well, if we have a digital system that, particularly for those observations, we can actually track what's happening as a result of that training. So, for example, we've given some training on chemical handling. You would probably expect, following that training, people's awareness is high, and so you'll get more observations, more hazards reported, more good practices reported about chemical safety. And then over time, that goes down. So you can see when you need to do your refresher training, and then you boost it and perhaps use a different type of training. And then you get these sort of waves, and it's putting multiple waves that actually gets people to really understand what they're doing and actually be really sort of, this is what we're going to do, rather than a sort of one-off telling people on it. It kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't like to say goes in one ear and out the other, but it sometimes does. So we're able to measure outcomes if we have a digital solution. Problem number 2, so you've done all that training, but now you need to find the person to do the job. If you've got lots of paper qualifications, skills, dates on certificates, it can be quite a bureaucratic process to actually find the right person, whereas a digital system, of course, allows you to filter on the person, the skills they need, and the dates. What I also like is, I mean, we've talked about how reporting can become quicker and easier, and I like to think that that means that you can report more things for training. So you know, we all fill in, presumably, professional development, what do you call it, PCD, the one that tracks your training, and it doesn't just say what training you've done, it says what did you get out of this. So it's not always CPD, that's what it's called. It's not always the case that going on a big long classroom course will give you what you need, whereas it could be something that just sparks that. And if you can capture that using, you know, a mobile app, because it's now quick to do, you can start building up a real database of what is important for getting that message across. Recording more informal, you know, I spent half a day with someone, rather than just having the basic, oh, I went on a big course and got a certificate for it. The last one of my what do managers do? We spend a lot of time in meetings, planning, and chasing up actions. Problem number 1, actions don't get done. With a digital solution, you can use it to monitor the actions, a kind of CAPA, which is corrective and preventative action type system. So when you assign an action to someone, they can get notifications. When the deadline's coming up, they can get reminders, and that dashboard can show exactly who's done what, how many things are overdue, so you know exactly who to chase. And it can be much, much more targeted. And as soon as you start measuring things, then they really start happening. So I think you'll find that more actions get done if it's quite transparent about who did what. Problem number 2, the action taken doesn't solve the problem. So again, you'll see with a sort of standard ISO management system, it's got 2 parts. So you assign the action gets completed, and then you verify that it's effective. Again, if you've got a CAPA type system, it can track that all the way down. So, you know, even as simple as taking a photo to show that the action has been put in place and it's there, It gives the person who's now signing that off, it's done, they've got confidence without having to spend a lot of time going and chasing it up. So we can close that loop more effectively with a digital solution. I mean, I guess really what it's saying here is that we've improved communication on what's happened. Problem number 3, in your meeting, health and safety is not seen as a priority in the company. We all read the news and see the world economy is just a mess at the moment. It's going to be getting more and more difficult to get resources for different parts of the company, for all parts of the company. And health and safety will be there, and environment battling the same with everyone else to try and get those scarce resources. When you go into a meeting with the board, with the senior management, you need to be taking good data with you that clearly describes the problem, tells what you're going to do, and tracks the process. They'll need to see that. Just going in and saying, oh, it's the law and it's a big problem, it just no longer will be sufficient to actually get you the budget that you need to get. So a digital solution that gets real-time, good, accurate data will give you a much stronger argument. Integration. So just as ISO systems, we've seen that they've come together and they now have a very common framework. Often digital software will also have a similar framework. So you can integrate all your things, and integrate, it's so much more effective in management than building different compartments, different sort of pillars. This is quality, this is environment, this is security. You have the option now of sharing that information. So rather than having I don't know, an audit that can encompass all these things together, digital solution makes this much more easy. And of course, it means that all the different departments are sharing the cost of the solution. So it's a good thing from many sides that it gives you this flexibility. So just finishing off, benefits of digitisation. It gives you better control. So you now have transparency. You can see what's happening in the workplace. It enables you to work more efficiently. So we've been able to share that data. We've been able to track our actions. We've been able to carry out inspections more quickly. So we've saved a lot of time. And we've been able to boost engagement because it's much more user-friendly, particularly than going and getting paperwork or doing an Excel spreadsheet, using mobile apps and things that we all use. So that was my presentation, and yeah, now time to ask if there are any questions, please, from anyone.
Oh, thank you, Alison. That was a really informative and interesting session. So I hope we've got lots of questions coming in. So first one to start off with is a digital solution easy to use?
Okay, can you see me? What happens if I do this, or shall I go back into screen share?
If you just go back into screen share, I think that's probably the easiest. That's it, lovely.
Like that, you want that again? Okay.
Super.
Sorry, is a digital solution easy to use? Yes. There are a range of things on the marketplace. I would get something that has been tailored for what you want to do with it. So particularly not a one size fits all, because then you're trying to change how people work to fit your solution, and that never gets adopted very well. So instead, you want to be able to ask people, how are you working, and then tailor your system to meet how they're working, and that will definitely encourage adoption. You'll be able to use, for example, the terminology that they're used to in your company, yeah, easy to use. It's I guess there's two parts. There's setting it up, and we've already talked about cloud solutions, which means that you don't have to do installation on site, and it's pretty much available immediately for that setup, and hopefully people are helping you set it up, and then it's good to go. So a cloud solution, very easy to set up. How people are using it. if it's coming through a mobile phone, people are pretty familiar with how mobile phones work. So yes, easy to use. What can work really well is sometimes you have a mixed age force range, a mixed age range within your workforce. And you'll find that younger people, of course, are much more into technology. So you can use them on a mentor scheme to help the older people. And then the older people are perhaps more experienced in your company, and they go back the other way with the sharing of information, and they're sort of mentoring your processes and things, and how your company works. So you can do a two-way mentoring scheme, and that works really nicely compared to just sort of take or just give, if you can do that. So yeah, so I've seen some really good systems like that helping people get started with digital solutions.
Okay, thank you. And what about, you sort of alluded to this a little about what happens if your workforce isn't very technically minded? How do you overcome those sort of issues?
I think I've probably just answered that question there with what I said before. Yeah, I mean, I love the mentoring as a sort of two-way thing to help people who are less used to mobile phones. If I might say, you know, obviously we do an enormous amount of testing, and people say, oh, do you give it to your children? You know, if I give it to my children, I know they're going to be able to use it. What I actually do is test it with my parents who are in their 80s, and see if they can do it. So yeah, just as a kind of like a fun sharing how it works, to make sure that it's user friendly. So that there's we're all into UX, which is the user experience, and making it as good as possible. Make sure you buy a solution that has a good UX, a good user experience.
Okay, we've got some questions about resourcing here. So some of the questions is, you know, there are a lot of the systems are really expensive, and with on top of that sort of annual running costs. So is there any sort of affordable platform that does not break the annual budget?
I mean, there's a huge range out there. Of course, come and talk to me. You know, there's the huge multinationals that are using sort of Intellex type systems, and they are very, very expensive. But there are definitely cheaper systems out there. So you just have to look. I think a cloud system is a more affordable way of getting what you're looking for. Like I said, look at 13:45. Oh dear, sorry, that's my watch. Look at if you can share the cost across quality, across environment, and maybe security to help. So go and promote it with them as well. I spend time with companies doing cost benefit analysis. We look at not just at the costs, but what their potential savings will be. So two sides, there's the working more efficiently. So how much time are you going to save? And you can usually get a pretty good feel for how much people cost, and you will actually find that it's an enormous amount, because there's a lot of people that you're asking to fill in, do inspections, etc., etc. So it's not just looking at your time, it's throughout the company. So we put that side in, and then the other side is, you know, this is a risk software, so it's the aim is to have less incidents. So if we can reduce the number of incidents, what will that potentially save us? And that perhaps is a more subjective, because you know you need to be measuring that over a long term. But we look from both those: how much time can we save, and what are the potential savings from having less. Having a better performance, better efficiency, and less incidents. So we look at cost from those two angles.
Okay, thank you. And somebody's asked a question about with the current abundance of software solutions, how do you actually integrate existing digital solutions into a single system?
Okay, so software links. I guess there's two ways. So all software will have an export function, export to Excel or whatever. You have to be able to remove your data as a sort of GDPR kind of thing. So you can export your data from one and import it into another. That's the sort of basic thing. More advanced than that, you get APIs, which are like pipes that go between different software. So you're probably needing someone that's more tech, or that's reasonably technical to do this, but it's certainly possible to connect. You need to have the API access on both sides. So if you're connecting two pieces of software, you need them both to give you this one that will give me the information and this one that will receive the information and what format it's going to receive it in. And then you sort of connect the pipe together and the information will flow automatically from one system to another. Doing that advantage is you can get, different pieces of software are good at different things, so you can get best of breed for different things, but still use that information. I guess there is also software out there that will do a kind of one size fits all, and then you don't have these integration problems.
Okay, thank you. And how do you get to measure the quality of information received in terms of honesty? So how do you know someone is not telling lies in these systems?
I think we've quite a lot of the information that can be collected as standard. So we said that the phone is automatically going to detect the location if you put that in, time, date. So that information comes in as standard. If we've asked for photos, then it's more difficult to lie in a photo. If you're talking about text, I think we have to be trusting that people are writing the right thing. Certainly in my system, we have a what are you going to do with this information, and there is a pot for, it's not going any further because it's malicious or it's incorrect or it's whatever. So, and then you can sort of divert different things if you don't think it's credible information. So I think that's the only thing you can say is that you have to trust that if people are writing free text, that they're writing what they've seen, and then you compare it with the photos and things, and the automatic time date stamp. I would say, for example, if you're going to a if you're going to court, another thing that software often has is a history tracker. If a form comes in, an inspection's been done, let's say it's an incident report comes in, if you read that, it might be that some of it's inaccurate, and you can then, the manager can edit that information, but those edits will appear in the history section. So if it goes to an insurance or a court case and the company comes in and they want to see that, they're able to very clearly see who has done what, so that the information hasn't been tampered with at a later date. But it's certainly possible to edit the information, but in this controlled way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And what about those people that are working in areas or in countries where a good internet coverage isn't available, or it's very intermittent and drops out?
I would say that the mobile app solution is a really good solution. It works offline, so you can send those reports from anywhere. It is true that when it comes into the system and you're doing the management part of that, up the web portal, that's a cloud system, and then the internet connection is needed. But the really, to my mind, the really key thing is that people are able to report from anywhere, and that's what you're able to do with the mobile app.
Okay, thank you. And you've mentioned a lot about sort of mobile phone use and using apps. And obviously it can be hazardous to use mobile phones whilst you're at work. So how would you suggest sort of management of that?
For sure. yes, mobile phones are very distracting, and we don't want to bring hazards into the workplace. I mean, for an example, mine, the app, a little message pops up at the start. Are you moving? Are you operating health machinery? Are you driving? All this sort of thing. Are you safe? And then you can continue so long as you sort of click through that. So it just prompts people to think about, are they doing something that's quite high risk, and that they shouldn't then be using a mobile at the same time. It goes, of course, further than that. Flammable atmospheres, it can get intrinsically safe devices, and you know, construction sites. I often see construction sites that have safe zones. So you can actually go into an area that is safe. It's a defined area, and use your mobile phone for doing whatever. But then outside that safe zone, you're not allowed to use it. So I would say, yeah, heavy machinery, light construction, flammable atmospheres. You need to be having sort of safe zones where you can use this.
Okay, thank you. And then how important...
Yeah, I talked with someone recently about they wanted to get intrinsically safe iPads, and then in their safe zone they were going to sort of chain it down so that people can sort of walk in, and it's like a, you know, when you go through the I don't know, security checks at the airport, and it asks you afterwards, how was your experience, and you sort of tick it's got like a pedestal with the buttons on the top. Having something a bit like that, a pedestal with an iPad that you can use for reporting or whatever, that's kind of built in so it doesn't walk about, and enables you to use that device in a safe environment.
Okay, thank you. And then another question is, how important is it to anonymize data when sharing things like your lessons learned, or in fact when collecting and taking photographs?
So yes, we definitely, all over it's got written, please don't take people pictures. I mean, I don't know where the question came from. In Europe, Switzerland, Germany, it's really super important not taking pictures of people's faces. How important is it to be anonymous? I guess there's two sides to this. Anonymous to try and encourage people to report, and you know, we have a QR code system. I think that it depends on the culture of the organization as to whether people feel safe to report hazards, or whether, you know, I can imagine again, a sort of construction site with multiple contractors. Some of the contractors might be a bit wary about reporting something that's going to cause delays, it's going to cause costs, and they might be seen as a troublemaker. So we still want that information. So an ability to report anonymously is really a good thing. Depends on your company and the culture it has. Then when you're sharing that information, yes, so our system has encrypted questions. So if it's someone's name who's had an accident, it will be encrypted. So the only person who can read that is the person who has the encryption key, which will be very few people. So a lot of people will have access to the information about what the incident was and can learn from that, but they don't get the personally identifiable information, the name. So yes, I think it's hugely important, and you know, data protection, data privacy is you know, it's a big field that we take very seriously, and I think all your software providers will. I would say that you had better security through a digital system where it's controlled than writing it on a piece of paper. You know, the sort of, if you remember the HSE incident reporting book, and then you have to rip out the page so that any personally identifiable information is not on the stub, but then the paper, you know, anyone can see it. It can go anywhere. You can lose it whenever. This is a much more secure way of holding and sharing information.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. I don't think we've got any more questions. I'm just checking.
That's good timing then.
No more questions. So I think that's a fantastic load of questions. So I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you, Alison, so much for sharing your knowledge with us. It's fascinating to hear you and to listen to what you had to say. Thank you to everybody else that's joined us this afternoon. The recording will be on the YouTube channel and Resource Hub tomorrow, so you'll be able to catch up or recap on anything in your own time. So we'll end the webinar here. Have a good rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again at another IIRSM webinar very soon. Thanks ever so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Sue. Thank everyone. Bye.
Bye.